Hi folks, welcome to another edition of Government Matters. And today, as our guest, we've got City Council President Michael Fenton. Mike, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me.
Being City Council President is no new thing for you because you've been City Council President before. And I was trying to remember when you held that position. It was pre-COVID, am I correct?
It was pre-COVID, yeah. I did 3 terms. I think it was 2014, 15, and 16.
So looking at the way the city was then and looking at the way the city is now, especially after surviving the pandemic and being affected by the pandemic in many ways, do you think some of the priorities have changed for the City Council in terms of dealing with some of the things that now are more prevalent?
Well, our city's changed for sure in those years. I'm not sure that our priorities have changed as a city. You'll continue to hear public safety as being the top priority for most people in government. We hear that from a lot of people, myself included, on the City Council, as well as the mayor and individuals representing us in other areas of government. Economic development is another key priority. Schools, those are usually the top 3. And what I think has changed over the course of the last 7 or 8 years since I was last council president is we've made a lot of progress on many of those fronts. And obviously we have some work to do in certain areas, but specifically in economic development and the progress that we've made in the downtown and really around even where we're sitting today, Mike, on State and Main, it's been tremendous. And we've had some great success with developing projects down here that have evaded past generations of people in leadership in Springfield. So I would say those 3 remain top priorities for the city: economic development, public safety, and schools. And another one that really has come into sharper focus in a new way since my last presidency has been housing, and specifically a focus on both an appropriate mix of affordable and market rate housing. And similarly, we've made great strides in that area as well, and I think for the benefit of really not just the residents of Springfield, but the entire region.
I know that the number that keeps getting tossed out is about, the region is short about 17,000 units of housing, and it's just of housing. And you're right, there's a difference between market rate and affordable and workforce housing. Obviously in Springfield we have seen, I see it driving around the city, many new houses going up. In my neighborhood, Maple I-6 Corners along Central Street, we've got quite a number of new houses that, as I understand, are now in the process of, I believe a lottery system is in place in order to determine who's going to buy those houses. In your opinion, do you think that we've got the land still in Springfield that can be developed into more housing? Because that's always an issue about whether or not we've literally got the space.
Yeah, Springfield isn't a place that has a vast amount of buildable land. So the concept of clearing, improving with cul-de-sacs or single-family homes is a growth strategy for some of our suburban neighborhoods and our suburban neighbors, but not Springfield, Springfield proper. We are a very densely populated community, and so there's not a lot of vacant space to be building new housing. So what we've done and what we've seen good success with is repurposing existing sites. Sure. We've got the Court Square site right across the street from where we are, 73 upscale luxury apartments right in the heart of downtown that are already fully occupied and booked, and other similar successes in the downtown with the Willys Overland building and other examples of workforce and market rate housing in the downtown that really planners have been talking about since the Ryan administration and the Urban Lands Institute report. We've finally been able to make progress in that area. And the latest exciting announcement is McCaffrey's control of the so-called Masonic block across the street from the casino at the former United Bank building. And that'll bring over another 100 units online. So we've had tremendous success in repurposing other structures into creating market rate housing. And in terms of affordable housing, we've had similar success. So you look at a place like the YMCA on Chestnut Street. We've repurposed that and turned on a great number of affordable units there. The former Brookings School, which was damaged in the tornado, and most recently, the so-called Gemini site in the South End, which is going to be additional affordable housing on the Marble Street corridor that will offer an ownership option for those affordable units. So we've really made this a priority as a city, and by the way, that leaves aside a lot of the other work that's been done by developers like Gordon Pulsifer and his group with First Resource, the former school department building, the corner of Byers and State. So we've really made this a priority in helping to address the housing crisis in Springfield and do it in a way that appropriately addresses the needs of our population and the needs of our economic bases in each of those locations. So we've done that, I think, with pretty good success. We're still in a housing crisis, but that is a priority that we've made as a city that I think is different from the focuses that we had 8 years ago.
One thing, you mentioned the Urban Land Institute report, which was many years ago during Charlie Ryan's administration. They focused on downtown redevelopment, and one of the key points in that report was you have to have a neighborhood established of human beings living in the neighborhood in order to then to support any number of retail businesses and services. With Willie's Overland coming on board, with Silverbrick, now with the Court Square building,
Right.
Do you think we're getting closer to having that kind of downtown neighborhood that would then spur additional business growth?
I think the answer is yes, and I think you need to look no further than asking the Army Quadrangle Civic Association. I spoke at their annual meeting earlier this month at the Artist Cafe, which opened up on Main Street. They're rebranding as the Metro Center Neighborhood Civic Association, and we were talking during that meeting about how the population downtown in the very small, densely office and commercial use center is now over 6,500 residents who reside right here in the downtown. So it is currently a neighborhood, and it is growing in terms of its economic reach and its housing reach through bringing these projects online. And I think that you've seen some of the spin-off that has resulted. We've got now a downtown grocery store. It's another thing that was talked about in that report and many of the food desert studies that were done in the years that followed. So I know that report was for a period of time considered stale, but that report had some really key recommendations that took decades to implement. And you might recall, Mike, that the top priority in that report was turn the Court Square building online.
Right.
That is the key component, the golden goose that has evaded the city for generations. And through working collaboratively with MGM, Mass Housing, the city, the SRA, a variety of other stakeholders, we were able to put that project online, and it is really impressive.
And you said that it's already 100% rented or close to that?
It is 100% rented, but there is a waiting list available if people are interested.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a huge success story then. Absolutely.
It sure is, and you should take a look online at the videos and photographs that are available of the facilities. It's something that people are gravitating to, and there is a market for.
Right. Let's talk economic development for a moment, because that was another one of your top things. You know, there's been a lot of people in the city that have realized that there's been a lot of emphasis on downtown locations for economic development. And I asked this of your two colleagues yesterday. I said, should we be doing more in neighborhoods? Because there's a lot of neighborhoods that I think would benefit by looking at what kind of economic development could be located there instead of downtown. Is that something that you've been looking at?
Yeah, certainly. And as you know, I've been a member of the City Council for going on 15 years now, and I am a ward councilor. So I represent 3 geographic areas in the city: East Springfield, Hungry Hill, and Atwater Park. And so I'm intimately familiar with the importance of neighborhood economics and investing in economic development, not just in the downtown, but in our neighborhoods. it's a fact that investment in the downtown economics is important to the city's lifeblood. It is the heart of the city. It is the pulse of the city. But it's also true that we have distinct neighborhoods that have their own identity and have their own economic development needs. So while it's true that a lot of attention and focus has been paid to downtown, I've tried, and I know the city has tried also, to endeavor to increase that economic impact to all of the city's neighborhoods. So the most recent tax incremental financing plan that we approved is just on the outskirts of East Springfield in my district. That is the Springfield Performance Food Group. We worked collaboratively with them to offer a tax deal that's going to bring over 235 jobs to the city. And there's a lot of other examples of doing that same kind of work, whether it's a place like Typeflex, CRRC, a variety of other economic engines for neighborhoods that aren't located in the downtown, but that are a part of the fabric of the city, and it's important that we support those institutions as well. In terms of neighborhood walking districts or neighborhood dining districts, we do have programs to support those through the facade improvement program that is operated through the Economic Development Office in the city. And I think you saw a good diversity of spending in the ARPA grants that were granted from the city and the American Rescue Plan Act funds that we received. Those were north of $120 million, and those were spread across all of the city's neighborhoods to provide a shot in the arm and support for small businesses who were affected by the pandemic.
In your opinion, anecdotal or factual, do you think that those small businesses, thanks to the ARPA money, are turning a corner and are reestablishing themselves? Because small business is what creates jobs in many, many instances here.
So you see progress across the city. I think the rise of organizations like the Latino Economic Development Council and other organizations is a testament to that, supporting through grants and funding micro businesses and small local businesses. But it should be no secret to people in the United States that middle America and small local businesses are hurting and have been hurting for some time. Inflation, competition from large big box stores on a national level. I mean, this is an international trend in economics and the way that our economy as a country, as a state, as a city, as a globe has evolved over time. And what I know about Springfield and about Springfield's neighborhoods is that they persevere, they evolve and adapt, and our neighborhoods each provide services and small businesses to people that provide added value. So I won't avoid acknowledging that it has been challenging for a lot of those business owners, and it is likely to continue to be. But I have every hope and expectation that they'll continue to succeed and thrive as key components to the fabric of our city.
I just want to mention a couple of things from the working groups that the City Council, that your predecessor Jesse Letterman had started, and then they finished up their work just a few weeks ago, basically. Sean Curran's group was basically on tourism, arts, entertainment, and there were some interesting things that committee came up with. A Cat in the Hat 4K race, which probably would be the easiest thing to accomplish because it's not building a building or anything like that. He mentioned a food hall, or the group mentioned a food hall. I was just wondering, when you looked at some of those recommendations, since so much of Western Mass's economy is tied up in tourism and arts and entertainment, when you look at it holistically, the 4 Western counties, just how much we've got in that sector. I was wondering if you thought those were doable, and if so, how do we get them done?
Yeah, I think they're great ideas, and I applaud Council President Letterman for appointing those committees. It's similar to what I did many years ago in appointing similar working groups. We appointed, you might remember, a young professional committee. And a lot of recommendations came out of that committee, some of which were implemented, including Restaurant Week, which still to this day is run by some of the members who were volunteers and appointed on that committee that I created. Some of the ideas were great concepts and ultimately weren't able to get implemented. One of the recommendations that came from that YP committee back then was doing a think it was like a color run. It was a similar race that was proposed, but at the time, what was in vogue was a run that involved, it was like paint colors that get thrown throughout the race or something when you cross the finish line.
Yeah,
I think it's called Run or Die, but not D-I-E. I think it's D-Y-E is the name of the concept. So those were great concepts. Not all of them were practical for volunteers to get up and running and off the ground, so to speak. But what I would say about the results of that committee, as with many of the others, is even if one of the proposals or the concepts ends up being implemented, it does reverberate and have an impact on our economy and our city locally. And the best example of that is Restaurant Week and the work that they've done and continue to do. And now it's a part of the fabric of our downtown and at-large restaurant community, and help run by the Business Improvement District.
And just as a sideline to what you're saying, obviously we've seen an increase in restaurants, not just downtown, but through the city. Years ago, the thing that people would say is if you want to have a nice meal out, you drive to Northampton. There's no need to drive to Northampton, in my humble opinion, because we have a lot of new restaurants, varying price points, varying cuisines, different kinds of menu. And I think that it's really helped reestablish Springfield as a destination point.
Yeah, you've seen that, and you've seen that all across the city with different types of restaurants, whether it's Saray 2 on Allen Street or it's Osteria in downtown on Bridge Street. There's definitely been a renaissance of restaurants in the city, and it's exciting. It's a part of what makes cities fun to live in, a good restaurant and nightlife, and we're certainly improving in that area and much stronger than we were 10 years ago.
One of the other points that you just mentioned was about law enforcement, crime, that kind of quality of life. I know that your body, the City Council, has very defined kinds of roles, but one of the roles is advocacy, and all the councilors, certainly that I've covered, are advocates for various things. Are there various aspects to law enforcement that you're advocating for, that you would like to see? We have a new police superintendent coming in by May, if I'm remembering correctly. And I had a chance to speak with him. I was told prior to the interview he's not going to talk about what he would do because he doesn't want to disrespect Cheryl Clapprood, our current superintendent, who will be retiring. But I thought I would ask you if there are things that you see, not only as a city councilor, but as a resident, that you would certainly like the new superintendent to consider.
Well, we all have priorities in the area of public safety, and they all relate to quality of life and making Springfield feel like a safe place. You can't have a successful school system, a successful residential real estate market, a successful downtown economy if people don't feel safe here. So that's why it is always brought up as priority number one. And Springfield has had a history of not the best reputation in that area. I think largely undeserved because we're the largest city in the region and the third largest city in the state. But we continue to work on these issues. Superintendent Clapprood did a great job, in my opinion, and she's earned a well-deserved retirement. And Larry Akers as the new superintendent, I think, is a historic and terrific appointment. I know Larry and have experience with him and know his reputation amongst the community and his reputation amongst the force, and it is really second to none. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do there. In terms of my advocacy that I've done in the past on the City Council in the public safety space, Mike, you're right that our role is pretty narrowly defined in terms of having a legislative function. And so I'm a pragmatist. I try to focus on the things that we have jurisdiction over. And so the two things that I've led on over the years on public safety have been the police commission, wrote the ordinance that was ultimately enforced, and we now are enjoying the benefits of that system and added transparency and accountability in the police department. And in addition to that, focusing in the police department on funding, making sure that they have the appropriate funds and backing them for the difficult job that they do day in and day out. The other component of what I've supported in the police department is the licensure on a state level. I was talking about that issue in Massachusetts long before the Post Commission was appointed, drafted and proposed a resolution that was ultimately supported by the council, and the legislature in the wake of the George Floyd murder saw the wisdom of bringing forward a system where now, just like my position was always that I'm a lawyer, and there's a statewide board that regulates attorneys. If I am untruthful or lie in the course of my position, I should expect to be disciplined and potentially have my license to practice law removed. The same goes for all other types of professional positions in the Commonwealth. Accountants, all the way down to barbers, have statewide licensing boards that they have to report to. But before a couple of years ago, with the change in the creation of the Post Commission, police officers didn't have that same requirement. They earned their badge through training in their local police department, earned an accreditation, and then could go anywhere they wanted. And if they were disciplined in one place, they could go to another place that wouldn't necessarily have access to that disciplinary record. So I was very happy to see the implementation of the Post Commission and the implementation of the Police Commission. Those are both within the legislative or quasi-legislative functions of the council. And beyond that, it's, as I said, supporting the department, making sure that they have the resources and the support that they need from the city to do their difficult job, which is a very difficult job.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're sitting here at the corner of the MGM campus. MGM's right over there. In fact, it's the sports book is on the other side of the wall. You were very, very involved in a casino oversight committee. You've been a watchdog for the city to try to make sure that what is happening here is what's supposed to be happening here in terms of the host community agreement and those types of things. Are you happy with that? Do you feel that, especially after Bill Hornbuckle's last visit to the city, where he basically said, well, we overestimated things. We didn't realize what this was really going to be, so we can't meet those job standards that we established. And I was just, as I was walking through the casino, I was thinking, I wonder what Mike Fenton thinks about all of this. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think about all
I'm flattered that
this?
came to your mind, and I'm honored to be called the watchdog, because I've tried to do that earnestly and honestly for the city.
I think you did. I'm not greasing you here. Yeah. I think that you actually paid attention, which somebody needed to do.
So there's a multifaceted answer to this question. So do I think that MGM is honoring the terms of their agreement? The answer is yes. Am I glad that MGM is here? And do I think that they've provided an added value to the South End and a revitalization and opportunity for renaissance in this downtown that we've seen results for? The answer is absolutely yes. Has it been thus far everything that we hoped for? The answer is no. It hasn't delivered on a lot of the expectations that we had for what it could be. Now, with that said, I do not want to diminish their efforts. They have brought, particularly even in the last 12 months, world-class entertainment to the downtown, to the Mass Mutual Center, in a way that has transformed what it's like to be out and about walking around this place on a Friday or Saturday night. And this is coming from someone who works long hours in a law firm. Its offices are downtown. So I've seen that transformation, and that is due to the investment and the reputation of MGM and their efforts that they brought here. I think a part of the reason that we haven't seen the overall transformation of the South End as quickly as we would have liked was the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a major roadblock and speed bump in the honeymoon period of the MGM development. It was right in the sweet spot when we were hoping and expecting to be seeing and facilitating development across the street in all directions, on Union Street, on Main Street, on State Street. And we have to be honest with ourselves that that was a major impediment. We're now on the other side of that. And I think now that we are on the other side of that, and it's not that far removed, we're not 2 years on the other side of that, we're just about a year when we're fully in the clear and people weren't worried about additional shutdowns. We're seeing the fruits of that labor come to bear. And that is in the form of places like the Willys Overland building, Court Square, the major announcement with McCaffrey being involved at the former Masonic block, and other exciting announcements in the downtown. So I think overall, MGM's revitalization of the South End gets an A, and is absolutely something that has been a benefit for the city overall. not just in terms of jobs and tax base, but in terms of synergies in the downtown. In terms of meeting expectations, it gets a B. And the reason for that is we haven't met the job expectations that we had at the outset. We haven't seen yet the complete transformation of Main Street. And I'm excited about what's to come, but there's work to do there.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree as just a Springfield resident and a guy who walks through the casino. So let me ask you about another aspect of the casino was economic development that did not exist when you were city council president last. Here's another one, cannabis. We've got a new dispensary going to open in Indian Orchard, and we have a dispensary that was announced for Boston Road where Russell's Restaurant used to be. Looking at other cities and the number of dispensaries versus population, and then looking at how some of these dispensaries are failing, do you think this is going to be it for Springfield in terms of number of dispensaries in order to try to maintain that these businesses are going to have a good shot establishing themselves? Or is that something that the city council is involved with that?
Yeah,
in terms of licensing?
I think that's fair. I would say, again, it's a multifaceted answer. And the first response would be we have to be careful about basing our economy primarily on vice industries. We're talking about gaming, we're talking about cannabis, and that we can't fall into the trap of focusing on these newly permitted, at least on a state level, industries in Massachusetts and thinking that those are going to be Springfield's ticket out of a history of economic downturn. That is not the answer. The answer is manufacturing jobs, high quality service jobs, appropriate housing, training our young people to be able to meet the workforce development gaps that we have in the region of Western Massachusetts, and we're doing all those things. At the same time, we want to remain competitive and take advantages of opportunities when they come up. Gaming was one of them. Gaming was legalized on a statewide level. If it wasn't going to be Springfield, it was going to be West Springfield, Palmer, or another surrounding community. Holyoke at one point had a proposal. Yep. So we competed and competed well. We won that competition. We got the crown jewel, which was MGM, and we got it in the best place, downtown Springfield in the South End. And we've seen success from that. So I'm happy about that. In terms of marijuana, similar situation. There's a lot of people who are against the legalization of it. There's a lot of concern about adding another vice industry. And then when it was legalized, it became a question of, well, where's it going to go? Similar to casino, a lot of our suburban neighbors, almost all of them, voted it down, said, we don't want it here. Springfield took the steps to be competitive and said, all right, well, wait a minute, it's here. Let's just leave on the table for a minute the vice discussion, and someone's going to revitalize and result in enjoy the economic opportunity from this. Why shouldn't it be us? So we have competed in that space, and I think that you've seen some of the results of that with Springfield having more locations than any of our abutting neighbors. But the question about whether or not we're oversaturated or whether there should be more facilities, I'm not really qualified to answer that question. Okay. I guess I would say, Mike.
Sure.
I'm not opposed to adding more. If demand dictates, then sure. I've followed what's happened in other communities, some closures in Northampton of retail facilities. Holyoke is discussing a moratorium on new facilities, and they've also seen a lot of the excitement that they had around grow facilities in their industrial downtown evaporate overnight. A lot of time and energy and municipal focus was paid to those projects, and they really haven't come to bear for them. So here in Springfield, I'm happy that we've focused on things that have worked out. We've remained competitive. We succeeded at the things that we've competed in, whether it be gaming or cannabis or competing for the rail contract with CRRC and on and on and on. But in the marijuana space, I don't know, to be determined whether or not we have enough or more are required. And quite frankly, the big variable in that will be demand.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, 28 minutes have gone by, so I got to wrap this up. I want to thank you so much for coming in and talking about these various topics, and really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have you back.
Yeah, happy to be here, and you guys do an important public service by having these Government Matters shows. I appreciate you coming back out of retirement to do them as a public service to the city of Springfield, and look forward to a good year for our city and many more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And folks, you've been watching another edition of Government Matters here on Focus Springfield.